Hi, these are the top 10 films of 1969. When I say top 10, I mean my personal favourite films of 1969. Cheers. In at number 10, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. George Lazenby makes his first and last appearance as James Bond. He's fine. It's clear that they wanted him to play it like Sean Connery did, but he doesn't quite have the charm of Connery. But he is very convincing during the numerous fight scenes. Apparently he got the job after he impressed the producers by accidentally punching a stuntman in the face during an audition. That and his Big Fry's Turkish Delight adverts.
Big Fry.
Here comes Big Fry with exotic Big Fry Turkish Delight, full of Big Fry Eastern promise. Big Fry Turkish Delight.
'Cause big fries are coming by. Big Fry.
The film has a darker and more serious tone to it, and that's really in its favour. The dark ending where Bond's wife is murdered is a standout in the series. Indeed, any woman Bond falls in love with seems doomed. This is due to Muriel Wright, one of the few women Ian Fleming genuinely loved. She died in London during an air raid in World War II, and her death had a huge impact on the writer. If Bond ever falls in love with someone, she is taken away from him, dying at the hands of the enemy. The late Diana Rigg was perfect to play the first woman who captures Bond's heart. She was tough and full of character and energy. The location photography in Switzerland is breathtaking, and John Barry's score is one of his best. It's a shame we never got the follow-up where Bond could get his revenge on Blofeld, but this solo Lazenby Bond film is surprisingly good. In at number 9, Salesman. This documentary about door-to-door Bible salesmen is really depressing. We follow 4 ghastly, desperate hustlers. The Badger, the Gipper, the Rabbit, and the Bull, who force these incredibly expensive bloody Bibles on people who are clearly struggling for money. Their persistence and tactics are revolting, and seeing Bostonian Catholics feel like they are failing their religion by not buying these sets of golden books is really horrible. Everything in this film is grim, but the strangest thing is watching these salesmen acting up for the camera.
Wished I was a rich man. I wouldn't be going on this shit land. Oh, shit.
Today we get cold callers, and it's easy to tell them to fuck off, and it's even somewhat enjoyable. But back then, when you had these people in your house, pretending to be your friend, and force these things on you, it's not that easy. Salesman is a tough but really interesting watch. In at number 8, Butch, Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Most of this western has a very light tone, with lots of buddy comedy scenes, and maybe a little bit too much of Paul Newman performing tricks on a bike. But despite this comedy tone, it ends in a suicidal bloodbath. The photography in Zion National Park is stunning, and it's a shame that it hasn't been utilised in more films. The thing that makes this film so memorable, though, is the chemistry between Paul Newman and Robert Redford. They're both so cool individually, but together there is this wonderful connection, and you can tell that they genuinely like each other. They're wonderful in this, and they repeat their partnership in the equally good The Sting. The two of them were one of the great cinematic duos, up there with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, and Johnny Five and Benjamin Javeri. When Newman died, Redford said, "There is a point where feelings go beyond words. I have lost a real friend. My life, and this country, is better for his being in it." It's a shame they only made 2 films together, but they're 2 great pictures. In at number 7, Where Eagles Dare. This Men on a Mission, well here, not just men, is incredibly fun. This is another film with outstanding location photography, telling the story of a bunch of British soldiers along with an American friend, parachuting behind enemy lines to infiltrate a castle. Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood star. Richard Burton conveys so much anger and emotion in a theatrical fashion, while Eastwood just stands there, looks cool, and massacres dozens and dozens of Nazis. The action is spectacular. The plot is full of twists and turns, and Clint Eastwood massacres dozens and dozens of Nazis. In at number 6, Easy Rider. This hugely influential independent road trip movie helped usher in the new Hollywood era of the 1970s. It deals with hippies, drug use, and the social divides in America. Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper are super cool as they ride their motorbikes across the stunning landscapes to a knockout soundtrack. A lot of the film is just them riding their bike while the band or Steppenwolf play in the background, and there's nothing wrong with that. It also features Jack Nicholson's first great performance. He's only a supporting actor, but he steals every scene he's in and almost the entire movie. Easy Rider is a great film and a wonderful example of how cinema was changing in America. In at number 5, they shoot horses, don't they? From one of Henry Fonda's children to another. This nightmarish film is about the terrifying dance marathons that took place during the Great Depression, where poor people were forced to stay awake and dance for weeks on end in order to win money for the pleasure of a sadistic audience. There would even be the occasional race where the last 3 couples would be eliminated. It's terrifying, and you can see how reality television has taken its place in society. Let's humiliate and punish people for our entertainment.
You're an adulterer!
I need to
Will
take...
you had? Excuse me!
I need to...
The cast is astonishing. Jane Fonda, Susanna York, Bonnie Bedelia, is that how you say her name? Bonnie Gennaro, Bruce Dern, and Red Buttons are all fantastic. But Gig Young steals the show as the MC. He plays the showmanship on stage and the cruel, controlling manipulation behind the scenes perfectly.
But that's life. Let's give them a big hand. Yeah.
Sidney Pollack's direction is fantastic and it is paced perfectly. So we get tired and slightly mad as the characters do. Man's inhumanity to man has always been a problem, and when we think about how that's been used to entertain people for thousands of years, it does pose the question, what on earth is wrong with us?
But that's life. Let's give them a big hand. Yeah.
In at number 4, Kes. Ken Loach directs this wonderful film about a boy who's sort of seen as a no-hoper, someone who is destined for the cane in youth and the mines in adulthood. We spend time in his world and we watch how he escapes his grim surroundings by stealing a young kestrel and training it. It's a beautiful and tragic film, but it's also incredibly funny. Particularly funny is Brian Glover as the vain, aggressive football coach.
He wants bleeding milking! That big fat git.
What did you say? What did you say?
No, sir.
Right, get off in that changing room.
David Bradley gives one of the great child performances. He's perfect in it, and he plays distracted probably better than anyone else. He's also amazingly physical in it, as if he's been bitten by a radioactive kestrel. Ken Loach has always been interested in telling people's stories, and particularly poor people's stories. But he does a brilliant job of not being condescending, which is a pit many other directors fall in. Some of the Yorkshire accents are so thick though that there is a lot of this I don't understand.
Judd, he's taking the bike.
From up Furze Hill round there.
I don't need yours to go faster on the kid's scooter.
Well, there's not to go for there, then, is there?
Kes manages to be depressing but also life-affirming. It's a remarkable film. In at number 3, The Sorrow and the Pity. This is one of the great documentaries. This 4-hour documentary shows the collaboration with the Vichy government and the French resistance by focusing on one town in France. The real people they interview are astonishing and feel like characters straight out of fiction. From wonderfully tough and righteous farmers who were in the resistance, to a fascist member of the bourgeoisie who collaborated, to a British spy who was undercover as a transvestite singer in Paris. And also the most villainous looking Nazi captain with gold teeth who constantly smokes cigars. Having all these different people with their own different opinions and viewpoints is so informative and astonishingly fascinating. You learn so much about the situation and about these people's motivations. Some of the stories that are told would make brilliant films in their own right. The director, Marcel Offels, also directs all these interviews in interesting different places. The Nazi captain is being interviewed at his daughter's wedding. We see resistance fighters sitting around a table with friends drinking wine and reminiscing. These different settings and the incredible use of news footage mean this long documentary is never boring. The editing is excellent. We have a Nazi soldier in a beer cellar wearing lederhosen talking about a French woman that he loved. Then we cut to footage of women who romanced Nazis having their heads shaved. It's an important film about a period in time when hatred was everywhere. A must-watch, especially for these times, or, well, any time, I guess. In at number 2, Midnight Cowboy. This features 2 knockout central performances from Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman. Midnight Cowboy is one of the great New York movies. Voight plays a stupid cowboy hat wearing dishwasher who moves to the big city with hopes of being a male prostitute. High aspirations. Things don't go well, and soon he is stuck in the city, and his only company is a sickly conman, Rizzo, known as Ratso to his friends. Well, he hasn't got any friends, so just the people who know him. Both the central characters aren't good people, but they are lost and they are desperate. Their eventual friendship is truly moving, and we worry so much for them. The film is incredibly experimental, with great editing, strange nightmarish dream sequences, and really trippy moments. The marvellous Harry Nilsson sings the theme Everybody's Talking, and John Barry provides yet another iconic soundtrack. Midnight Cowboy has it all, and it's yet another Dustin Hoffman film which ends on a bus. He really needs to start taking the train. And in at number 1, The Wild Bunch, with the Vietnam War raging and political figures being gunned down in the streets. There was no more room for the moral violence of the old western. The good guy with the gun killing the bad guy with the gun does not exist. Here we have a group of violent criminals who'll do anything to survive. They're being hunted by the good guys, who are equally bloodthirsty and immoral. The bloodless violence of the old westerns is replaced with squibs and chaos. Innocent bystanders shot, run over by horses, and massacres on a scale like nothing else ever seen. The film is set in 1913. World War I was just around the corner, and the machine gun was about to change the world forever. Death and destruction are nothing to celebrate. That said, the violence and the action here are really fun. Much like Clint Eastwood's anti-violence western Unforgiven, when our protagonists let it go and do what they do best, it's hard to not get excited. Sam Peckinpah changed the western forever. He was one of the pioneers of using slow motion in action scenes, although here there was no dodging the bullets. Jerry Fielding's score is fantastic, as is the cinematography, and the cast is amazing. William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, Robert Ryan, Ben Johnson, and Warren Oates are perfectly cast. And even though they're a murderous bunch of bastards, it's great to spend time with them as they drink, laugh, and drink. The Wild Bunch is a game changer, one of the greatest westerns of all time, and for my money, the best film of 1969. So, counting down the top 10, in at number 10, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. In at number 9, Salesman. In at number 8, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. In at number 7, Where Eagles Dare. In at number 6, Easy Rider. In at number 5, They Shoot Horses, Don't They? In at number 4, Kes. In at number 3, The Sorrow and the Pity. In at number 2, Midnight Cowboy. And in at number 1, The Wild Bunch. Well, that was my top 10 films of 1969. What are your top 10 films of 1969? Cheers.